Why are we on a boat?
All the stuff that you wouldn't think would be involved in powering content is here at IBC.
It's really, really exciting as an indie creator.
These guys are extremely smart because they've caught up massively.
So our project is trying to change isolation into imagination.
I think very soon we're going to see democratization of distribution.
You're going to end up messing with what they've already got there.
I only found that out speaking to these guys, and I've been playing games for a long time.
Hi, welcome to Beyond the Frames, a really special episode of Beyond the Frames. As you can see, I'm here on a boat with Haz.
Hey man.
Why are we on a boat?
You know, we thought we'd have a change of scenery. We've been at IBC in the conference for like, 4 days now?
And where is IBC?
Amsterdam, in the Rye. So yeah, I mean, hanging out here, talking about all the great booths we visited, the experience. Couldn't be a better place than on a boat in the canal. So
yeah, it's awesome. So Beyond the Frames is really an entertainment-centric podcast, media entertainment, and talking about how we create content, the technology that helps us create the stuff that we create, from games to movies to series. And here at IBC, it's an annual conference, if you're not familiar with it. It's driven primarily by the broadcast industry, but because of a lot of changes that have happened in media entertainment in the last sort of 5 to 10 years, you're seeing a lot more crossover tech emerging in this space at IBC. So what are some of the things that stuck out to you?
Well, I mean, walking around, look, first off, the last time I was here at IBC was probably pre-pandemic, man, you know? But there's one common theme that I do find is that it's all very broadcast tech-centric, right? So one of the things that really stood out for me was the esports stuff. It was the first time that they're doing esports. I'm giving a keynote on Monday for it, which is going to be awesome. But you can see how the hardware plays such a massive part in streaming esports. Because like when we say esports, we're thinking, you know, games like Counter-Strike, Fortnite, League of Legends. There's all this back-end stuff, and like walking around, we did that together. Remember, we walked around and we started seeing like companies that do cables and transistors and server rack mounts and all the stuff that you wouldn't think would be involved in powering content is here at IBC. So like, you know, one of my big highlights was chatting to Blackmagic, for example. Like, obviously I'm expecting the usual updates on their cameras and Resolve, but then found out they did an iPhone app, which looks pretty cool.
Yeah, tell me more about that iPhone app, because this is taking a lot of the features in their cameras and their hardware, but putting it into an iOS app that you can use on any iOS device.
It's literally, whenever I'm on set, I always have a viewfinder, right? So I use any kind of viewfinder to block my shots and stuff. What's really cool about this is they've emulated what the camera lens would be like in terms of your field of view and everything. You could record your footage as ProRes. This is actual professional codecs, right? In 4K or whatever the phone resolution takes, you can, you know, transmit it to Resolve via the traditional way, but you can also link it with Blackmagic's cloud system, which is a new thing they've introduced for the last few months. And what that means is, like, I have an editor in New Zealand waiting for shots to come through. I can film all of my stuff on my iPhone, hit upload, and it uploads it. And I can keep shooting as well. So it's a really nimble and fast way to get content out, but it's on an everyday device, your phone.
Yeah, and that you can see that totally lining up with a workflow where you've got some people on location, either scouting shots or taking final shots, and sending it back to a team that might be editing offline or editing somewhere else, and totally, you know, keeping that that fluid workflow just moving. Yeah.
Totally, man. I wish I kind of had that app. Like, oh, we're going to get a lot of this going underneath a bridge, the echo, which is kind of part of the charm, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Like, it's not every day you get to sail down a canal boat, talk about animation and VFX and film production. So you mentioned seeing a lot of the back-end systems that, as content creators, we're familiar with the software suites that we use to make the stuff, and then once we sort of deliver and send it out there, we don't really think about what it takes to distribute and deploy content across different systems, distribution systems. One of the things that I learned a lot about at IBC is there are dozens of brands that handle the play out, the ingest, the transcoding, the conversion, the versioning, that that entire industries in and of themselves that you're just not aware of as creators. So that was really eye-opening for me. There were a whole bunch of brands and fascinating people we spoke to. And something I noticed a lot in the tools that they were talking about, the new features for their tools, is the integration of AI into their systems. So whilst as an artist, when I think of AI, I immediately go to Gen AI visuals or textures. But these companies are using AI to make to automate
versioning and localization.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was because we spoke to one, right? And it was like an OTT, company that distributes content. And it was interesting because we saw one company, God, I forgot the name, but they use AI, but really to create metadata. So if you have like hundreds and hundreds of footage, archive footage, or if you are like the BBC or even an independent company that's been creating so much content, and you want to find a way of locating that content to potentially license it out, it's a nightmare cataloging stuff, right?
You need long manual process,
totally
prone to human error, of course.
Absolutely. And now they have this AI system that runs through all the footage, does image analysis, figures out how many shots have a guy in there or a particular talent maybe, and even the metadata of locations, all of that would get generated super fast because it's AI. And all of a sudden, you've got a library and stock library that you could commoditize and sell and extend your business. And to me, that's a really good use of AI because, like you said, we're so used to seeing AI, potentially taking over people's jobs or Gen AI mid-journey. And this is a great way that it's data at the end of the day, isn't it? It's all data,
and it's your proprietary data, and that's really important for commercial use. If you're using something like Midjourney as it is today, right now in 2023, it's great for concept art, but you can't really use that as a commercial solution for final pixels that you would then monetize because you don't really own the data on which it's trained. But systems like this, where whether you're an indie or a big studio, you've got a bunch of data, you've got a bunch of footage that you own yourself, but you don't have the means to create your own AI system. Using one of these off-the-shelf products is really the way to go to come up with a commercially viable way of making use of the.
But also, we've had the term quite a lot now when we visit these various booths that are offering these solutions, like white labeling, right? Which is a really common term. But what's interesting is if you wanted to set up your own, we spoke about this jokingly, but if we wanted to set up our own version of Netflix, our own streaming service, of our own content, say in 10 years' time, we potentially could get one of those services. It's a white label, put our own branding on, do a deal with a distributor or an OTT solution. All of a sudden, we've become a content distributor as well. And that's kind of reflective of the stuff that we've always spoken about, how, not only are the animation tools are being democratized for us to create, I think very soon we're going to see democratization of distribution.
Yeah, and that's really, really exciting as an indie creator, knowing that that's a viable route now, where you don't have to accept the long-established gatekeepers, but you can be much more involved in that whole side of your business, is really exciting. Now, of course, companies like Adobe and Avid are also building really meaningful AI tools, like Firefly. Adobe Firefly just came out of beta, and the Adobe stand was showing how Firefly is going to help multiple products from obviously Photoshop, but Premiere and After Effects as well. And we went over to the Avid stand.
We went over to the Avid stand.
And what did you saw a few tools there?
The interesting thing about the Avid stand is because Avid has been the oldest legacy editorial solution in Hollywood. Hey. That's what I love about Amsterdam on the canal. You're just
so friendly.
So friendly. So hi to everyone. It's super cool. But yeah, Avid being the traditional legacy, you would think, these guys are not going to catch up and stuff. And these guys are extremely smart because they have caught up massively. They're looking into AI to extend editorial, still keeping the legacy of traditional Hollywood editorial, the way they manage their data. But, I remember we were speaking about this earlier, Avid still has that market share because it's traditional, it's a legacy, and also studios,
well, it's
feel
trust, isn't it?
It's
Editors can trust the not only the interface, but the data that comes in, that it's rock solid, stability, and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and also film financiers, when they look at who's editing, and a particular editor would want to be on Avid. So you'll think, they're not going to catch up with the likes of Premiere and Resolve, and you find that, oh my god, they are catching up, because the first thing you see on their booth is AI assisted editorial. You're like, okay, right. So and again, you look at what they're doing. They're not doing stuff that is like automating an editor's job. No, they're doing things to help the editor, like automating meta tags in their footage, auto organizing your bin folder structure, using AI to figure out if there's any glitches in exporting, because it's a common thing. You export your footage or your rushes or your dailies, and then you see like a pixel gone off. Now you don't need that one person at 2 a.m. going through everything to do what you call a QC check.
You have your assistant.
You have the AI that just detect that for you.
Yeah. Now, on the subject of Avid versus Premiere and DaVinci and all the others, not every creator is going to be using a non-linear editor in the same way. For example, I rely on the Adobe ecosystem because I'm not just a video editor, I'm also the person putting together the graphics, so I'm going to be dipping into After Effects. I want some of the interoperability and connectivity between Photoshop and Illustrator, supporting layers, for example. That's the sort of thing that the Adobe Suite's always going to provide an advantage for me. So that's why I don't go to Avid, because I know I'm going to want to drop in a layered Photoshop file into my workflow, into After Effects or Premiere, and keep moving. I don't want to have to convert each of those to a PNG and then bring it to Avid or whatever it is. So it's horses for courses, right? Obviously, if you're editing a film and you're not really taking care of the graphics, you're really just looking at the storytelling and the visual progression of your shots, then you want something that's super reliable, rock solid, and tailored for that job. And that's where Avid and even DaVinci.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I use DaVinci Resolve only because I can just bring in anything I want. Don't have to worry about transcoding too much. But also, I'm obsessed with visual looks in terms of color. Everything that I do involves color massively. So the fact that I can bring in footage and do a temp grade very quickly and use Fusion sometimes to do a quick comp, all in that one environment, is super helpful. But obviously, when you make a bigger movies, and you hire an editor, you don't have control on what software to use. So I always find, coming to a place like IBC, even though I'm maybe not technically versed in Avid or as good in Premiere as you are, I'm aware of it. So when I do hire an editor on the next movie or the next show, I can speak that language. I'm familiar with the tool set,
Yeah, and you know why it matters so much to that editor. So I caught up with Brett Danton, friend of ours, right?
Brett, love Brett.
Amazing cinematographer. I caught up with him at the ProArt booth yesterday. Really enjoyed our conversation. And it's fascinating to see how many parallels there are between his workflow and mine. We both use Omniverse. He's using it for very realistic renders for car ads, for product shots. He demonstrated how he's integrated Gen AI tools that are built into Omniverse to help him ideate on different backgrounds for the 3D props, building into his workflow, and how he's got it integrating really nicely with the lighting tools that he loves as a cinematographer. Even though it's a virtual environment, he's able to use his real-world lighting skills very easily. It just sort of translates over. And I see parallels with my workflow, because even though I'm not creating hyper-realistic stuff, I'm creating an animated show, I'm using the same suite of tools, but in quite a different way. I am using Gen AI, but I'm using it specifically to generate textures for some of my 3D models when I'm doing my scene layout or doing my look dev. And I'm using the same lighting tools, but I'm stylizing it a little bit because it's an animated show. So it was really great catching up with him on that. And what I noticed with the smart stages at IBC this year, the dime a dozen, the smart stages, and the real-time graphics, a real shift in the last maybe 2 years, that real-time has become kind of the norm, which is great, because just a few years ago I was kind of rallying the industry to let go of the offline traditions, right? The traditional offline way of creating entertainment, to embrace real-time tech. So it's really great to see that change, and Gen AI being like the natural extension of that, because you're trying to get to speed and efficiency and the real-time feedback. What are some of the things that stood out to you in that space?
I think you're right about the LED walls, because you would expect there to be LED walls everywhere, and there are, but it's such a different vibe this year, because this year it's like, yeah, we have volume, not because it's a new thing, but now it's a new improved thing. We've updated our software, we've updated the tiles of the screen, they're a little bit more affordable. We have new camera tracking software, whereas I remember like, at previous conferences when like LED volume stages were being shown, everyone was like, oh my god, what is this new thing? Oh, it's not gonna work, it's not gonna be a thing. And you're right, it is part of a common tool set now. When producers are budgeting shows, you traditionally would budget for a green screen shoot. Now they're like, hey, what if we budget for a volume shoot? So I even find like, the places like IBC isn't just for like people that are looking to buy hardware, but I think producers, should, and if they're not, they should attend these shows, because you need to be ahead of it. You don't need to know technically how the insides work, but be aware that, there is things like MOSIS tracking. there is like OptiTrack for mocap, and there is things like Neutum, which now has this amazing, like, they did this really great deal where they do the head-mounted for the HMI, right? Head-mounted display, and you also have the hand tracking, and you also have the body, and you also have the software. It's like this really affordable, independent mocap solution.
That's
right?
super portable, doesn't need any external trackers, but very nuanced in its, the captures that you get are very nuanced, very stable, and that's what I use on my show. I use the perception neurons on my show, and an iPhone for facial animation, and go straight into Unreal, or it can go via the Axis software that they have. In fact, they announced a new app to support their Axis software suite, a new iOS app that gives you even more control.
Is that the face one? Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. I mean, by default, their plugin for Unreal supports facial capture via iOS.
It's the AR
kit stuff, and full body motion tracking, including fingers. But this additional app gives you even more control, which is really exciting.
And the fact that the software is free, which is really cool. And I think, like, spending time with Neutum at IBC, really got to understand like why they are still in the mocap market, which is very competitive. We look at all the amazing mocap brands out there, like the XNs and the OptiTracks and all of that. Yeah. But in terms of like inertia suits, it's very competitive, and these guys still manage to retain that market share for them because of. And I think it's not because they're doing suits. I think it's just the way they work, the way they approach the whole thing. Yeah.
They have something called the VPS. I think it's a virtual production system, the Neutum VPS, and it's really built around the pain points that you and I have been experiencing for several years, and it's not just our input, but the community in virtual production. Because virtual production, as we've said many times in this podcast, it's an umbrella term.
It's an umbrella term.
There's so many different opportunities within the world of virtual production. And for the way mocap can integrate into all those systems is kind of front of mind with Neutum. They really look at the different use cases and the different pain points that creators experience and go, okay, this is where their system can help. And they're very upfront about, if you're trying to achieve certain things, go to another solution, because ours is really excellent at this spectrum of stuff. So more power to them. I really enjoyed.
But that's the thing, right? You can combine these techs together to make it work, though, right? Like, yes, you can use a Neutum suit, but if you want like a certain fidelity to your face capture, then you can use something like Faceware or something, right? And it all combines, because at the end of the day, it's all data that you're going to be exporting. You export it to Alembics, FBXs, regardless of whether you're using the Axis tool or you're using Motion Builder to do cleanup, right? Yeah. And I think that's where we are. And when we look at IBC and you walk around the booths and you're like, oh, there's a lot of competition. It really isn't. It's just another version of that tool that has an additional feature. And I think it's great that we're not being forced to use a particular brand. We're not being forced to use a particular software. I mean, I use two types of GPUs. I use an AMD and I use an NVIDIA one. That's fine. I use AMD for games, NVIDIA for the filmmaking stuff. That's okay. That's fine. Yeah. It's really a horse for carts, right? You said.
Yeah. And with USD part of my process, I feel there's a real trend towards avoiding vendor lock-in. I don't feel like I'm locked into any ecosystem by going down the USD route.
I remember, like, first day at IBC was the Accelerator program, and I got to see you on a panel talking about the project you were doing. Tell us a bit more, like, what is the IBC Accelerator program for those who don't know what it is? Right.
So IBC as an organization has been going for something like 50 years. It's it's quite the institution that attracts, as we've been saying, loads of technology companies and fosters sort of innovation in the way it brings people together across multiple aspects of the industry. And a few years ago, they set up an accelerator program which really focuses on disruptive technologies and ways of tackling industry challenges that just don't get looked at because everyone's focused on product and services that they're already doing, but they're not really getting into the ins and outs of industry pain points. So that's what the accelerator program sets up to do. It gets people in different parts of the industry together to really look at some challenges that ought to be solved, kind of thing.
Yeah, so you got involved because I know there was the whole 5G network involved in this whole. There was a whole thing about it, which I found really interesting, by the way. Like, I'm not a comms guy, and I remember we were taking a boat trip. I think it was like last night, and I met one of the guys that were dealing with 5G, like the Queen's coronation and all of that stuff. And it's amazing because you don't really think that, oh my God, you do need a wireless network. And I'm like, but why? And you're like, oh, actually, when you're on an airport runway, you can't have cables.
Right.
So you need that. Or you need to quickly make a quick broadcast because this big incidents happen.
Yes.
But even from a filmmaking point of view, right? You know, if you're in a location that
Yes.
there's no plug sockets or generators, you need to be able to like upload stuff very quickly. That 5G wireless network is very interesting. How did that fit into what you were doing?
Right. So the one you're talking about is University of Strathclyde.
Yes.
And the R&D that they did to prepare a 5G network that last year at IBC, at the drop of a hat because of the death of Queen Elizabeth, they needed to scramble and help broadcasters provide coverage for that. But of course, where they ended up to capture the footage on the airport runway, because you can't run cables, you can't run a hard wire to send the data back. So they had to, open up their 5G and set up a 5G hotspot right there and transmit broadcast quality data.
But speaking of transmission, one thing that I did find out, which might have not been on the panel, but it was definitely after when I spoke to the guys, was they needed administration authorization to transmit. Because regardless of whatever airwaves, whether you're on a 5G network airwaves or whether you're on like an FM radio broadcast, it's pirate transmission. So you need, and it takes 6 to 8 weeks minimum. So they had to like put in some new protocols to get this stuff signed off right away, because obviously this had stuff to be broadcast quick. So it just shows how technology can also influence policies that have been so archaic, like, oh, it takes 8 weeks to fill in the form. Whereas with something like, the unfortunate death of the Queen, and they needed to broadcast this thing, they made changes to the protocols.
Right, and that change that happens in the industry, it kind of relies on several industry figures to kind of rally behind it. So that accelerator program, because that project came directly out of the accelerator program, is a really effective way of doing it. So if you're involved in the accelerator programs, it isn't just a fun sort of way to collaborate and explore potential, opportunities in tech. It's also about bringing meaningful change. So the one I pitched this year was to take some of the infrastructure we have in 5G and some of the best practices that we've all kind of developed in real-time production over the past few years and put them to use for real change with an audience that often gets overlooked. So the audience I was focusing on was, and still is, children in hospitals who are facing terminal illness or long-term illness. Quite often in hospitals they experience a lot of isolation and kind of sadness because they don't know quite often what's happening around them. They're having to follow lots of protocols and rules in hospitals and not really getting to interact with other children. Some of them, their immune system might be down, so they've got to be literally isolated from other people. And it occurred to me that we make entertainment all the time, right? To bring delight to people's lives, but we very rarely think through who those people are.
The effect it has on people.
The effect it has on people. And, one of my clients received an email about a show that we make, thanking us for making a show that brought him and his daughter together. His daughter had very challenging learning disabilities, but through that show, because they kind of connected over the show, she was able to communicate much more effectively with her family for many, many years, and it brought a lot of joy to them. And for us, it was like, well, we're just making a preschool show, but it meant a world of difference to the life of this child. And so it got me thinking, like, we make content all the time, and we know that it's fun content based on engagement or viewers or comments or whatever, but that show that we made was able to make such a change to that little girl's life without us even trying. So I thought, what if we actually tried to make a difference to children who are sick, in hospitals, who are isolated? So our project is trying to change isolation into imagination so that they can interact with like a virtual world or a character that that's live streaming into the hospital, and make it much more engaging, like a puppet show, really, but a digital puppet show with like fantastical elements.
Why do you think this is now possible today compared to, like, say, 5 or 10 years ago?
Well, I mean, being able to do it in Unreal Engine and have production values that that really immerse you in that and feel kind of wonderful and attention grabbing, and 5G, right? So if we can, the challenge with hospitals is that they've got an infrastructure and protocols that protect the patients and the staff as the number one priority, as they should, right? So if you want to go in there and put in, network cable and high-speed internet, you're going to end up messing with what they've already got there, and that you don't want to then
there's medical equipment there, man.
Right, you don't
Heart
want
machines.
that going down. So with 5G now, you can get the bandwidth, but you can also separate it from other
Dedicated
networks.
channels. Yeah.
So I think that combined with real-time animation is making this kind of show possible.
That's amazing, dude. I mean, I saw the stuff that you were showing. It's really empowering stuff, man.
Yeah, it's exciting. So esports is really picking up here as well. I think this might be the first year that they've got a dedicated esports section at IBC. I know you're delivering the keynote tomorrow for esports. You spent some time recently in South Korea, right, with the whole esports community there.
Yep.
You also met some of the companies just yesterday. So tell me about the people you met.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool. I mean, because, like, obviously we're developing Fortnite games, right? And that's in the esports community and the context of esports. But then, like, went to meet these like esport gamer kids, like 16, 17-year-olds, and like super like excited, and they're playing Counter-Strike. And Counter-Strike is a really old game. This is made in like 97, 98, and it was. Do you remember the game Half-Life?
Vaguely.
Okay, so this game called Half-Life, which was very popular, made by Valve Software, right? The guys who make Steam, and they did a mod. Like, basically a mod is basically a bunch of people, a bunch of players that will create their own version of the game using the assets, right? Kind of like what Fortnite is today, right? And they create this thing called Counter-Strike, which ended up becoming an actual game. So,
I see. So Counter-Strike came out of an existing game.
Exactly. It came out as a mod from Half-Life, and guess what? I only found it out speaking to these guys, and I've been playing games for a long time. So I'm like, wow.
How long have you been playing games?
I would say since the Super Nintendo. No, NES days. Yeah, that kind of sets my age, which I'm not going to tell you guys. But yeah. So I've been playing a long time. But PC gaming specifically, it's always been shooters, right? So I'm watching these guys play these games, and these games are not like Call of Duty quality graphics. They're very simple looking, like, compared to what we have today. But one thing I did notice, dude, was the speed at what they were playing at. It was close to like 300 frames per second. So when you're doing esports, every millisecond in that frame rate counts. If there's a frame lag or a drop, it ruins the experience. So the first thing I asked these guys is like, how did you guys get into esports in the first place? And a lot of them just came from like the fact that they were on YouTube, they saw some footage and they wanted to play, and then all of a sudden it became a community. And you find out that esports isn't just a competitive gaming thing. It's a community of people coming together all over the world.
Right.
And they go on championships.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. Let's talk hardware. What's your gaming rig? And like, I'm like, tell us what your gaming rig was like when you first started. And one of them started at the age of like 13 or 12 or something, really 9, some of them. And they're like, oh, we had a really crappy laptop. I'm like, oh, wow. But we didn't care, because for us, it was as long as we're able to chat to the other gamers and, have a social interaction online, That's all they cared. Today, they're using the latest NVIDIA graphics cards. They've got great processors.
They've got sponsorship.
They got sponsorship. They go around the world doing tournaments. They win prizes. But you know what was so interesting, dude? We've been so far speaking about GPU, right? Being so important for like things like Unreal and Omniverse and so on. GPU isn't a factor for the guys playing Counter-Strike
because it's a really old game.
It's an old game that's dependent on CPU.
I see.
And again, you wouldn't know this, right? Until you talk to these guys.
You just assume all games need a graphics card. And
right, because we're in that GPU mode, right? We're in Unreal mode, and these guys know it's all about the processing speed. We don't want
an AMD Threadripper would be an ideal thing for them.
100%. I mean, obviously they have like an NVIDIA 3080 card or something, but for them their priority has always been the processor and the RAM, right? And they don't really crank up the graphics as well for the obvious reason I said, because they just want the fastest, gameplay in 300 frames per second. I'm happy with 60 frames per second, by the way, but 300 frames. Yeah. But then I had a really interesting conversation because I'm like, what's the future for you guys? What are you going to do? They go, well, I'm going to university. I'm like, what are you doing at university? I'm assuming doing game design. No, I'm going to do business and management and economics. I'm like, okay, interesting. So where do you see yourself going in the future? And they're like, look, here's the thing. Playing these games, esports, are amazing. It's a ride. But they've taken things from the esports world that I never thought they would have. One of them was saying, I have way better project management skills. In fact, when I was at uni and I did my uni project, I jumped into the project manager, and I was so good at it because when you're setting up these esports games, you're playing 5 to 6 players. You're the leader. You have to set the maps, set the checkpoints, and go, okay, you guys are going there, you guys are going there. Let's really work in tactical mode here. And he carried that over in business and economics. That's cool. Freaking amazing, man.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
There are many, many routes. Even esports can lead to a completely different skill set.
Totally.
Because there's a crossover. The other thing that was so obvious about walking around the esports area is that, all of these players are essentially broadcasters.
Yeah.
They're entertainers. So of course you would be at a broadcast-centric convention because every one of these people on Twitch is broadcasting their own content to an audience that is super engaged.
And that's how they got discovered as well, dude.
Right, and that follows through to major events at physical locations in stadiums that also get broadcast on a massive scale. That journey from an esports player on the laptop through to a high-end gamer and broadcaster, I've got to believe they're a bit like us in that they've got a hardware partner that's been with them on their journey that understands the thread. I don't know about you, but with my journey from the live action stuff I was doing at Universal through to the VR work, through to now making my own show and doing the project with IBC accelerators, it's me moving through all those modes, having people you and I both buy systems from Scan.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
I love the continuity I have with that team because I can point to references like, when a couple of years ago we were doing a gaming or a VR-centric project. Would I still use that same hardware, same setup? What do I need to change to be able to use Omniverse or AI? And I don't have to kind of do that research myself.
Yeah.
I just tell them the use case and the goal. And I wonder, that having that as kind of like an extension of your team feels really vital to me. Do you find that with you and your studio?
100%, dude. And, we always know as producers that relationship building is the biggest thing, right?
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons we're here at IBC. We're building relationships,
100%,
catching up with old friends and meeting new friends and so on. And for me, building a relationship with a hardware vendor is super important because, once you build that relationship, you have sort of like a second nature language. They know your company inside out. They know, I'm going to, when the new PlayStation comes out, Hazimation is going to need a really new system, and they're ahead of it. So when I do call them and say, hey guys, it's Scan, we're developing for PS6 now or something, they're like, yeah, we got you, we know, because they know our infrastructure. You can't really do that if you're bouncing from one vendor to another, because then you start all over again.
Right.
It's kind of like a relationship.
And it's great to have your own frame of reference. It's one thing to have frame of reference of externals, but you can refer to your own projects that they already know about, whether the projects are released or not. It's great to have that frame of reference. But I just want to Did you mention PS6? Do you know something we don't?
No, I'm saying if, because there's a 4-year lifespan on like kind of like replicants in Blade Runner, but there's like a 4-year
Do
lifespan.
they have 4-year lifespans?
4-year
The
lifespan.
replicants of Blade Runner have 4-year lifespans?
Dude, yes.
Which line of dialogue says that?
It's the scene the famous scene of Rachel
With the owl.
with the owl, and then Terrell, the guy with the big glasses, goes 4-year lifespan.
Does he?
Yeah, man.
Completely.
Blade
forgotten that.
Runner nut here, so yeah. One of the cool things that we both found, being movie buffs and filmmakers, is the fact that we walked past a film restoration
Oh,
company.
yeah, Galileo Digital.
Galileo.
Yeah.
Dude, tell me your thoughts on that, because you were well into it. Like, you were checking all the reels, the IMAX reels and everything.
As soon as we walked past it, I was like, no way. Because it was clear to people like us what was going on. So it was great to see reels of film being streamed into what was clearly a digital scanner. And what I didn't realize until the guy we spoke to, as he walked us through, it was essentially real time. So the film was going through at 30 frames per second, but you didn't have to wait for it to scan and save as an image sequence and then bring it up in your editor. They had the editor up, and even though it was coming in at 30 frames per second, you can specify in the editor playback at 24 or 60 or whatever. So the scanning is instant. We're talking about milliseconds here, and the quality was excellent. I think that the one I was looking at had a Disney short from back in the day, scanning in at 5K in real time, and it looked so good. The detail.
It was full frame as well,
Full
right?
frame, yeah. So they would overscan it, so then you can crop it in your
You can see
your
the
own time.
perforations, right? The holes.
Yeah, the way the perfs line up.
Yeah.
And they've also got a stabilization tool that automatically stabilizes, because in film, not every frame perfectly lines up with the sprockets. So naturally, when you play back, analog playback means things aren't perfectly in sync, and that's part of what adds to the warmth of film projection, which is why a lot of filmmakers still love to shoot in film and for the organic nature of it. But then he walked through the other two machines they had. They had the IMAX scanner in place, the 70 mil stuff in place. That looked absolutely phenomenal. So clearly their stuff is for archiving. So there are companies out there with huge archives of film. They talked about museums and broadcasters, but of course filmmakers today that still want to work or shoot on film. I remember shooting with film on 35 on the show Haven, which is a sci-fi show from several years ago. It's Stephen King, adapted a Stephen King novella. And I loved working in 35mm because it was just gives you a quality automatically
It's
without
that
you having to work too
texture
hard.
you get, right?
Yeah,
it's
you
that
can simulate.
grain.
You can simulate it.
But there's
in
something
digital.
about it being like an organic thing, like a physical thing.
Yeah,
that's
and you
been
surrender
transferred.
yourself to that process, and you accept that the contribution, you can't control everything, and the contribution comes from the medium itself.
Yeah.
So being able to see that being scanned at high res, pristine quality, it was just an exciting thing to see the machine doing that. And I've often wondered, so what is it like when they scan it in?
Yeah.
What's the process like? And this was great to see for those.
They
three
even
different film
had
stars.
like filters for dust busting as well, right? Like, if you need to remove like a scratch and stuff, they can automate that. I could probably see AI coming into that at some point, where they analyze the
Sure.
frames and then remove, if they haven't done it already, like the Foundry with new plugins or something.
Uh-huh.
But it just shows you that that technology still plays a part in restoring or archiving or preserving the history of cinema.
Yeah, new tech can
Yeah.
continue to contribute to 100-year-old media.
Yeah.
So it's been a really eye-opening, inspiring, and informative time here at IBC.
Yeah, if I had to pick 3 words, it'd probably be similar to yours. Definitely inspiring. Inspiring to the point that, there is a lot of technology out there that's kind of like influenced some of my ideas that I'm going to come up with.
Mm-hmm. And that collaboration for the Accelerator program, collaborating with Noitom, with Curing Kids Cancer, Texas Children's Hospital, AMD, and Noitom and White Light all together, that collaboration, to me, I'm coming away thinking, the message there is just, you can make it happen by joining forces with people in the industry, pooling your resources together.
All over the
It's
world.
amazing.
All over the world as well.
It's a global thing.
Yeah.
Well, that about does it for this episode of Beyond the Frames. Thanks for joining me again, Haz.
Pleasure, man.
It's been great talking about IBC and all the cool stuff we saw.
fun.
And I'm inspired to go back to London and crack on.
Me too, man.
Until next time. Hi. Your
Bye.
face.